With that, I apologize. I went way over my time, but I guess that's prerogative. I recognize our ranking member, Ms. Pou.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No problem with me.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Chairman. First of all, let me just say to Ms. Lundstrom and Ms. Litvak, thank you. Thank you so very much for joining us today and for sharing your very, very important work. But also, it takes an immense courage and empowerment to share your personal experiences and the obstacles that you have overcome. So thank you for sharing that. Really appreciate your testimony and the words and the kind of work that you're all doing now to make sure to address that. We've talked about this, right? And it's been mentioned, all of the upcoming events like the World Cup, the Summer Olympics, the America 250 will require significant labor to build the infrastructure needed to host mass matches and related festivals. In the past, we have seen labor trafficking among vulnerable individuals who perform temporary labor-intensive jobs such as venue constructions, janitorial services, groundkeeping, just to name a few. These operations are often outsourced to contract labor crews and individuals who can be susceptible to forced labor activities. So we cannot take our eyes off the enhanced risk of forced labor trafficking at these events. Ms. Lundstrom, in your opinion, what should Congress be aware of when it comes to forced labor and labor trafficking violations, and how can we address the significant threat and mass gathering events?
Thank you, Ranking Member Pou. I'm happy to answer that question briefly. I think there's two elements that are really important to be considering here. The first of which is, as I mentioned, there is no data around labor trafficking at events. And so if we are going to move forward with a strategy, we need to know what it actually looks like. We need to have a picture first. So I think prioritizing data and really understanding how major events impact and change local workforces is the first step there. And then the second piece is really thinking about those supply chains and the products that are being purchased and brought in as well. And making sure that those products are not coming into our country and not being sold for additional profits that have been made in other countries by exploited persons.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for that, for your thoughtful response to that. You know, it's vital that the Department of Homeland Security and the Blue Campaign also focus on laborers and work to ensure that they know their rights as well. So that, I think that's important. I hope that my colleagues will certainly join me in advocating for DHS to incorporate this issue in the Blue Campaign. I also wanted to ask you, I think transportation is so very key to a lot of what we're talking about here. And as the most densely populated state in the entire country, New Jersey relies on its roads, bridges, and rails more than anyone else. During the World Cup, New Jersey will host 8 matches, including the final, as I mentioned earlier. Over 1.2 million fans are expected to travel to our state to enjoy this once-in-a-lifetime event. And in my district specifically, the Secaucus Junction connects numerous New Jersey transit rail lines and serves as an essential hub for fans traveling to MetLife Stadium to watch the matches. We know that criminals rely on transportation hub to traffic victims. I have been encouraged by efforts from the federal, state, local, and nonprofit stakeholders to increase awareness of how to recognize and stop human trafficking in and around places like the Secaucus Junction. Ms. Lundstrom, if you would also just share with us, how do criminals use transit hub like this Secaucus Junction to exploit victims, and how can we educate the public on how to recognize and report human trafficking in these settings?
Happy to answer that question as well. Transportation is just one of the many means that traffickers use to bring victims to the place where they are sold, ultimately for that trafficker's profits. And that happens across all modes of transportation. So again, there is this element of education for the general public to understand what trafficking looks like, because it touches all of our lives every single day. And so being aware of it and knowing where to go to reach out, to report instances, and also where to provide resources to victims, I think is very important when it comes to anti-trafficking work. And I know New Jersey has the New Jersey Coalition Against Human Trafficking, and they're doing wonderful work. I have a close friend and colleague who is a survivor leader there, Gina Cavallo. And I think New Jersey has set a wonderful example of what survivor-led anti-trafficking initiatives can really look like. Thanks in large part to both you and the coalition.
Thank you so very much. We certainly have worked really hard in New Jersey to try to make this a point of, something that we absolutely have focused on, and have allowed for very, very important legislation to be passed and supported and signed into law. So I'm happy to have been a part of that during my tenure in the legislature. A real quick question for Ms. McCoy. I was listening to your testimony and learned, as I was listening to what you were saying, you were talking about the important elements that you provide for the members of everyone who is surrounded, connected, and employed through the facilities, the hotel and motel enterprises. If part of my legislation that I spoke about earlier in New Jersey, certainly, and talked about the training and identification, right? And we want to make sure that we are identifying these individuals as victims and not someone who is looking to procure these types of services and be arrested and thrown into jail. The fact that some of them have not only been identified as anything other, something other than a victim, but been put in the very same vehicle, just transporting them into the police department with their perpetrator, as you've mentioned earlier, Ms. Lundstrom. But back to Ms. McCoy, if you would please, one of the things that was truly important to me was making sure that we provided and almost required that training be provided to each and every one of those employees so that they could easily and clearly identify and make a distinction who were really being victimized, right, and exploited and becoming that victim, and who may very well be doing doing it for different. Can you share with us a little bit, be more specific with respect to the type of training that you're talking about to easily identify? How do you do that for your employees? And I'm talking about housekeepers. I'm talking about elevator operators, all kinds from the cook right on through the super manager overseeing the facility. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Yes, we are anti-human trafficking training that we support, again, free for any industry employee, but also anyone in our communities that would like to take it, does focus on all forms of human trafficking and provides a number of indicators that in some combination may indicate suspected human trafficking, and directs employees exactly how to report that information, both to their supervisors on property as well as the National Human Trafficking Hotline and law enforcement where appropriate. And so that training is designed to specifically showcase ways in which hotels can potentially provide opportunities for that exploitation and how we can mitigate that risk, both from, like you said, any role, front desk, all the way to our culinary and our cooks. And we've seen such a tremendous amount of engagement across our industry by all different types of employees who not only are taking that education and turning it into action by making those reports while at work, but also in their communities. Because ultimately, our job as an industry is to be a community steward, and we're creating more eyes and ears, whether it's reporting while at work or in the communities where we all live and reside.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.